Any attempt to disrupt the electoral process today, tomorrow, shall be dealt with squarely.
And political and civil society leaders have been reacting to the warnings by the Minister of Territorial Administration, or better still, the threats, as they consider the words issued or made by the Minister of Territorial Administration concerning the security situation of the country and stability ahead of the elections next year. Smart Chikan Gabriel Innocent as they talked to Dennis Njang, National President of the Popular Action Party, the PAP, and compiled this report.
Monsieur le gouverneur de région.
While chairing the biannual conference of the 10 regional governors in Yaoundé, the Minister of Territorial Administration made hard remarks on some political leaders. He criticizes Professor Maurice Kamto for wanting to stand as a presidential candidate in 2025, whereas he had disconnected himself from the presidential chain when he refused participating in the 2018 presidential, senatorial, and municipal elections. He also lambasted Honorable Cabral Libi for brandishing irresponsible behavior by trying to claim ownership of the Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation, founded by Robert Kona. Honorable Jean-Michel Ninche was not exempted from the minister's verbal attack. These remarks of the minister ached the stomach of political leaders like Njang Denis, national president of the Popular Action Party.
It's rather unfortunate that such statements are being made to maybe, I don't know, it's an act of intimidation or it's an act of shying some individuals not to be part of the electoral process.
Just like others, John Dennis is baffled as to why Minister Paul Atanganji spits fire on these political leaders.
And I don't think there is any political party or any political actor that has made anything that wanted the minister to come up with such an outing. To me, I see that as an intimidation and intruding into the rights of political parties, which to me is not even the position of the minister.
The PAP president has the impression the Minat Master went off topic in the bi-semester conference of the 10 regional governors.
I think governors' conferences are not there to destabilize or discredit political parties and their leaders. I think it is there to discuss other major issues where we have security challenges and other issues that have to do with the day-to-day life of the people.
This political leader thinks Paul Atanganji needs to revise his responsibilities as Minat minister and allow competent institutions to criticize political leaders or take corrective actions against recalcitrant parties.
And with regards to the poor technical state of vehicles, often highlighted as one of the causes of the many accidents occurring at very close intervals of time on highways across the Republic of Cameroon and leaving several persons dead, Cedric Chakucho now looks at the importance of the roadworthiness inspection of vehicles, which is not very much respected to the latter. We have vehicles plying the roads with the roadworthiness certificate, but the state of the vehicles are very poor, leading to accidents like the recent ones that we have that were connected to or that were said to have been caused by brake failure, notably on the road linking Sanchu and Chang in the west region of the country. Cedric Chakucho has more.
With a bad brake system, one can easily find themselves in the worst situation. Vehicles which do not go for inspections are exposed to accidents because the materials used for the manufacturing of the vehicle can easily get bad. The elements that are to guarantee the security of the driver can get bad and he cannot know that they are bad. He has to do a checkup of his vehicle. Technical inspection is a crucial step for detecting technical problems with vehicles to possibly curb the risk of accidents on public roads.
Franchement, ça nous cause trop de problèmes. On a le corridor Douala, N'Djamena Douala Bangui, et si on prend encore la chemin de Bafoussam Douala, Bafoussam Yaoundé, on a trop de difficultés.
We do check-ups of our vehicle because we just have to.
Tu sais, parfois tu casses ta jambe. S'il faut attendre 6 mois, ça ne tient pas debout. Ça ne peut pas donner. C'est pourquoi dans notre secteur professionnel, les camions, ils vont dans des garages.
If we have to wait 6 months before going for a checkup, it will be difficult because with the bad roads we have here,
si on va dans des cassis tels que la route de l'Est et de l'Ouest aujourd'hui, dans la suspension, un mouvement peut, n'est-ce pas, réduire.
We still need check-up every time.
D'un tuyau à conducteur à air. Du coup, s'il se retrouve dans des endroits où nécessite un pourcentage de freinage élevé, forcément, le freinage ne sera pas bon. Et du coup, vous allez comprendre les hécatombes.
If the technical inspection is important, the period and on which type of road is also very vital. A checkup is necessary from time to time before riding on long distances.
Ce n'est pas parce qu'on a dit que vous devez passer le contrôle après un an que vous devez forcément attendre un an. Il y a une route, vous pouvez aller au village sur une mauvaise route et tout, vous entendez un bruit, vous revenez faire le check-up.
A technical inspection also aims to comply with pollution standards and avoid fines and other sanctions.
Out of Cameroon, 25 soldiers of the Democratic Republic of Congo's army have been sentenced to death for fleeing battles against the notorious M23 rebels in the conflict hit east of the country, while in Kenya more than 270 people were apprehended in anti-government rallies which intensified yesterday on Tuesday, recording enormous material damage. A roundup of these stories and more with ACA Lucy Liengo.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 25 soldiers have been sentenced to death by military tribunal in the country for fleeing battles against the M23 rebels and theft, amongst other charges. According to lawyers, the one-day trial which took place this Wednesday had a total of 31 defendants, including 27 soldiers and 4 of their civilian wives who appeared before the Butembo Garrison Military Court in North Kivu Province. Congo's army has for the past years been fighting the Rwanda-backed M23 insurgency as well as facing military violence, with around 2.7 million people displaced within the North Kivu province. While in Kenya, violent protests continue in the country. Demonstrators are calling for President William Ruto to step down. The tension started over a controversial tax bill that President William Ruto passed and later abandoned. During the protest this Tuesday, the Kenyan police arrested more than 270 people suspected of going on a criminal rampage during the anti-government rallies in the country. Kenya's Interior Cabinet Secretary, after the demonstrations this Tuesday, said the protests have been hijacked by criminal gangs who continue to disrupt public order, commit arson, and terrorize the public. Elsewhere, in Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye promises to renegotiate contracts with oil giants so as to generate income and boost Senegal's economy. The first cargo of crude oil from Senegal, according to sources, is being loaded at the Woodside Sangoma oil project. This move is a crucial step for Senegal, which joins the ranks of the world oil and gas exporters.
And coming up in sports, Smart Njikan Gabriel takes us into draws qualifiers for the next African Nations Cup. Who is playing against who? Which nation is playing against which? The answer in this report.
Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Namibia will be the future opponents of the Indomitable Lions during the qualifiers for the Africa Cup of Nations, Morocco 2025. The draw for the African Football Jamboree was done in Johannesburg, South Africa. All teams in Group J of Cameroon have participated in the Africa Cup of Nations. Cameroon has 21 participations. Kenya has played the final phase 6 times, while Zimbabwe has participated at the AFCON 5 times and Namibia Africa 4 times, ranked 8 in Africa and 48 in the world in the June ranking of FIFA. The future opponents of Cameroon, Namibia is 22nd in Africa and 97th in the world. Kenya is 25th in Africa and 108th in the world, while Zimbabwe is 38th in Africa and 129 in the world. The qualifiers for the AFCON has been spread over the FIFA window in September, October and November, with 2 matches in each of the 7-day window. The draw that was done by Marwan Shamak of Morocco and AFCON winning coach MS Faye produced 12 different groups, with each group expected to produce 2 countries, apart from Group B of Morocco that will produce just 1 team, since Morocco as host is automatically qualified. The 2025 AFCON will run from December 21, 2025 through January 18, 2026.
Sportsman Smart and Gabriel ending the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Joining us in today's edition of Talking Point, Dr. Nick Nguyen, political analyst. Thank you so much for your time today. First question, the Minister of Territorial Administration wants political party leaders and every other person against attempts to destabilize the upcoming elections in the country, attempts to destabilize the nation, and these warnings are considered by political party leaders as threats and intimidation. What do you think about the manner in which the Minister of Territorial Administration has been addressing political party leaders and Cameroonians in general?
Oh, thank you very much. I think I like Mr. Paul Atanganji a lot, until he came onto the scene, it was like, Anglophones could just be backed at. But with Paul Atanganji, one can tell that it has to do but with the character of the individual. Anglophones had always been seen as being very docile, but when Atanganji shows up, everybody respects him. But that said, I must say that he could do with some, with a little bit of emotional intelligence, because the country is going through a very difficult period, and we should be very careful how we address ourselves to each other, because you can say something and you probably mean one thing and others can take it differently, and you never know when things can explode and get out of hand, and one should never take anything for granted. So in as much as we have the democracy or the opportunity or the power to talk, we should always be very careful how we address other citizens, because nobody is another person's father in this country. Anybody can be appointed anytime to do any job. And just being appointed, because you have been appointed, doesn't mean that you have all the wisdom, and doesn't mean that you have all the truth, and doesn't mean that you have all the answers, and doesn't mean that whatever you say, everything that you say is truth. And I'm saying this because, as you noticed, the Anglophone problem is something that started very insidiously, and we didn't realize that 8 years down the road we will still be killing each other. And those that started the war, be it in the country or be it in the diaspora, they are not there at the war front fighting. It's the children of the poor, be they soldiers or armors, that are fighting and killing others. And then when you track back, you realize that it's this kind of insidious language, incendiary language, that usually starts problems. I mean, we should not push others to the wall at any time. Even if you think somebody is wrong, tell him in a very gentle, loving manner and explain why you think he is wrong.
Now, the manner in which the Minister of Territorial Administration has been passing across such messages is seen by political leaders of the opposition and civil society leaders as a threat and intimidation, and this is perceived as an indirect way of curtailing civil and political rights, an indirect threat to civil and political rights. What do you think about this?
The bottom line is that if Minister Atanganji is speaking, he's not speaking on behalf of Cameroon, and I think he's not speaking on behalf of all the 30 million of us. And if you were to take the 30 million of us, each one to express themselves on the same issues, will not all say it in the same way. I guess that's how he was brought up to say it, but I will not say it like that, and many people who respect others will not say it like that.
Do you perceive any attempt to destabilize the nation? Do you perceive any attempt to destabilize the upcoming elections in the activities, in the speeches of political leaders?
If you continue to push people to the wall, and when they find themselves between the rock and the hard place, that's when violence breaks up. But if you keep on doing things the way they ought to be done, there will be no problem. For instance, I remember there were some Cameroonians who were trying to get registered on the electoral list in Belgium, and nobody would let them do so. I mean, the question is, why don't you say that electoral registers will be open from this point, this time to this time, and all Cameroonians are free to get registered on that list, and then when they come, you start showing up with some other kinds of rules and ways of doing business that are not found in the books. You start asking for their resident papers, you start asking for things that are irrelevant. You know, it is for Cameroonians, and that is it, period. If their passports are going to expire, it's another trouble. But don't start looking for problems that do not exist. And this is how we create violence in the nation. This is how we create wars, which is uncalled for. Just respect the laws, just respect everybody, and do things the way you would want them done unto you. Unpoint thread. There's no need, trying to push things. If you push people to the wall, it's uncalled for. And we are going to the elections. Just let the elections be the way they ought to be, and there will be no problem. I don't see the problem. Just let people be and do things honorably, respect people, give people their space, let them express themselves. If you think they're stronger than you, talk to your own electorate, convince the people that you are good enough, and then they would vote for you. There's no need, pushing people left, forward, center. Besides, anyway, there are 367 political parties, and I see a weakness on the side of the opposition in the sense that they don't have the capacity to come together. If they had the capacity to come together and choose one candidate and all fall behind it, the story will be over. But you see, it is this greed and ego amongst us. While we might be blaming Atanganji, blaming everyone else, when we look at the other side, you see that people are unable to come together and solve their own problem.
Now, above all, above the manner in which the Minister of Territorial Administration speaks to opposition politicians, speaks to Cameroonians, above the whatever is called today Molinex strategy of the minister, it should be clear that post-election violence, chaos, should be avoided at all costs, because it has become almost a way of life in many African countries. Post-election violence, violence during elections and after elections.
There is actually no reason for any violence during any election. Just do things properly. Just follow the books and do things properly. Be true to yourself. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Don't try to change things for anyone. Don't block anybody. Just let things be. If 10 people have voted for A, the votes are 10 votes for A. If they are 20 for B, it's 20 for B. Let us just do things the way God wants us to do things. Because when you keep doing things the wrong way, they will catch up with you at some point or the other, and we are going to shed each other's blood for no good reason. Violence is uncalled for. All this hate speech is uncalled for. Let us just respect each other, I beg you. Let us all respect each other and do things properly. And you probably have heard me talking about the third option. There's the CPDM over this way, and then there's the opposition over this way, 1,001 of them. But I keep talking about this, my progressive CPDM thing that people keep throwing the rotten eggs at me for. But I tell you, at the end of the day, the progressive CPDM will lead this country out of this mess, in the sense that it's not about the name, it's about what you do to solve the problems of the people, to solve the problems of a nation. It's not about the name you give, whatever. It's about doing what is right, what is just, and what is good, and that's what will take Cameroon out of this mess. We're in a mess, and we ought to realize that and start doing things properly.
Now, tell us, Dr. Nick, what is this issue of the progressive CPDM all about? Does it have any link with the issue of an Anglophone candidates from the CPDM? There was a recent survey by the English Cameroon for a United Cameroon Civil Society organization that showed that the CPDM was going to be at the 3rd position of the upcoming elections, ceteris paribus, everything being equal. And if the CPDM, according to that survey, wants to win in the upcoming, notably the presidential election, it should put forth an Anglophone candidate, probably the Prime Minister, Chief Dr. Joseph John Gute, according to that survey, or former Prime Minister Philemon Yang, who is now the President of the 79th General Assembly of the United Nations. Tell us more about this progressive CPDM idea.
Well, it's not about sympathy, it's about doing things right. People are hoping that, well, if we have had two Francophone presidents for 60 years, probably it's about time for the Anglophone to be a president, which is justified. But when we are talking about the progressive CPDM, it has got nothing to do with an Anglophone, because you can still put an Anglophone there as president who is not good. So it's about getting a Cameroonian there who is good and who can solve the problems. That's what it's all about. So Cameroon or any state is about solving problems. Solve problems of common good. Solve the problems of the youth. Solve the economic problems. Solve the developmental problems. Solve the security problems. You know, when Christ was about to leave the earth, he asked Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" Peter says, "Yes, Lord, feed my sheep." So let's understand what Christ means by feed my sheep and go ahead and feed that sheep. It's about feeding that sheep. When a country is going through turmoil, is not doing very well, someone is not feeding the sheep. And so the progressive CPDM is about the logic of feeding the sheep. What do we have to do to feed the sheep? Forget about the word CPDM. But because CPDM has the power, CPDM has the yam and the knife, and therefore, if you help that CPDM to be progressive in their thinking, to move from their inner chamber to the parlor and be more open and embrace everyone else, and then be more outright, be outgoing, and put in place this import substitution, industrialization, training of the youths, and so on, to put money into the pockets of the children, to solve the Anglophone problem, to stop this stealing by ministers, to make sure that rights are respected. You know, like one of the things we say is that ministers must have to buy their own cars. By the time ministers are buying their own cars, we give them money to repair the cars and a little bit of money for petrol. Cut down on government expenditure and make sure that we help the youths, because while there are a few who are enjoying, the masses are suffering. That's the progressive CPDM.
And that's it for today's edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much, Dr. Nick, for your time. And coming up in about 30 minutes, Serjalon Otu and his guest with Equinoxe Soa. Do stay with us if you can. God bless Cameroon.